Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're diving into something that affects every single organization: employee silence. We're going to talk about how to take this huge hidden risk and flip it, turning it into your most powerful early warning system.
So let's just start with this one question. I want you to really think about it for a second. In your company, right now, where does a concern go before it blows up into a crisis? If you're hesitating, or if the honest answer is kind of, I'm not really sure, then you are in exactly the right place.
Because here's the thing. Companies that don't have a good way to hear the truth early, they still hear it. They just hear it late. And by late, I mean they hear it in exit interviews, in lawsuits, in bad press, or worse, after an accident has already happened. And as you can see here, these late signals are always more expensive. So, what's really going on here? Why do good people, smart people, stay quiet, even in companies that seem to have a pretty positive culture? Well, the root cause is almost never what leaders think it is.
This right here shows the massive gap between what leaders assume and what's actually happening on the ground. Leaders often hear silence and think, great, everything's fine. But for employees, silence often means something very different. It means they've done the math and they've concluded it's just not safe to speak up. Either because they're afraid of what might happen to them, or maybe worse, they just believe nothing will change anyway.
And you know what? That fear is not irrational. It is completely justified. Just look at this number. A global survey from 2023 found that nearly half of employees who actually did speak up about misconduct faced retaliation for it. Almost half. When you see a number like that, you realize silence isn't a character flaw. It's a perfectly logical survival strategy in a risky environment.
And let's be clear, this isn't just some fuzzy feel-good HR topic. This is a massive operational blind spot. The data on fraud, for example, is undeniable. The number one way it gets discovered is through tips from employees. Not from auditors, not from fancy software, from people. The exact same thing is true for safety problems, for product defects, for harassment. If you can't hear those early signals, you are actively choosing to pay for the disaster later.
Okay, so how do we fix this? Well, the answer is not just putting up a poster that says, we have an open door policy. That's not a system, that's a slogan. To really fix this, you have to engineer and build an intentional system for worker voice.
Now, this is where most companies completely drop the ball. They treat every single concern like it's the same thing. But a system that actually works needs to have three totally separate lanes. You've got your feedback lane for ideas on how to make things better. You've got your grievances lane for when someone feels they've been treated unfairly. And then you've got the allegations lane for the really serious stuff like harassment or fraud. Each one needs a totally different process. If you mix them all together, you just get noise and critical signals get lost.
So, what you need is a real system. The good news is, you don't have to invent this from scratch. There's actually a proven blueprint we can follow, and it's based on international standards for this stuff. So let's walk through the 5 steps to build it.
Okay, here are the 5 core pieces. We're going to create multiple channels for people to use. We're going to define the process so it's not a black box. We'll separate the initial sorting from the deep dive investigation. We're going to build a real process to stop retaliation. And finally, we'll prove the system works by closing the loop.
Step 1 is all about giving people options, giving them choices. You need at least these 3 channels. Why? Well, think about it. If your problem is with your manager, you're not going to go talk to your manager, right? If your problem is with HR, you need another path. That confidential channel is the crucial backstop. It's the safety valve that lets people choose the path that feels the safest for their specific situation.
Okay, step 2 is probably where most of these systems fail. It's that what now moment after someone has bravely spoken up. You have to be crystal clear about who sees the report, how long it'll take to get a response, what confidentiality actually means. Because if you don't define the rules of the game, people won't give you the benefit of the doubt. They'll just assume the worst, and they'll go silent.
Now, after you separate the initial review from the full investigation, that's step 3, we get to the absolute deal breaker, step 4, protecting against retaliation. A zero-tolerance policy is a meaningless phrase unless there's a real mechanism behind it. And this is what a real mechanism looks like. It's a series of proactive, documented check-ins. You are actively looking for signs of retaliation so you can stop it out. This is how you make safety a real thing, not just a word in a handbook.
And finally, step 5, close the loop. Now, this does not mean you share all the confidential details of an investigation. Of course not. It means you communicate back out that a report was heard,
It was reviewed, and, this is the most important part, here are the systemic changes we're making so this kind of problem doesn't happen again. A system that operates in total silence just teaches people to stop using it. Proving it works is the only way you're ever going to build trust.
So, all of this sounds good, but how do you find the gaps in your own organization? I'm going to leave you with a really simple but incredibly powerful test you can use, like tomorrow.
Here it is. Pick one recent problem that totally blindsided your leadership team. You know, a big client you lost, a safety near miss, a project that went off the rails. Then play detective. Trace that problem all the way back to its origin. Find the very first person who noticed something was wrong and ask him, "Did you say anything?" And if the answer is no, ask the most important question of all. Why not? The answer to that question, that's your roadmap. That's your map of silence.
So let's end right here. Building a system for worker voice isn't about being nice, it's about being smart. It is your organization's early warning system, because you're going to get the truth one way or another. The only question is whether you get it early when it's a cheap signal you can act on, or you get it late after it's already become an incredibly expensive crisis.